about the Formula project?
Well, the Formula project, that has a special place in my heart. That was the first boat that my wife and I really built for ourselves. Up until this point, I mean, everything I've done has been for the business, and we knew ultimately that it was going to be in someone else's hands in the end. So the Formula is a special one because we knew right from the start that that was going to be our boat to keep, and so we were able to do some unique things that we might not have done had it been a boat for resale to someone else. The Formula project started when I found a 1977 20-foot Formula down in Miami. And, you know, it's just such a historic brand, and, you know, the racing history and Don Aronow, and especially coming from Miami. And so I got it for next to nothing and brought it home, and it was rough. It had rotten floors and a rotten transom. Someone previous had converted it from a stern drive to an outboard, but unfortunately they had done a pretty lousy job with the transom, and it was completely gone. By the time I got it, it was waving to the point where, I mean, you could see the sway in it from the weight of the outboard. So I knew that was going to have to go. That ended up being a little more of a project than I thought it would be, but it turned out good. But what I did is I just started gutting it, and it had a ridiculous seating configuration that wasn't the original seats. It was something that someone else had done. And so I pulled all the seats out and pulled the floor out, and then I found that the entire understructure was full of chunks of some sort of flotation foam that someone just wedged in there. And that was a heck of a fight to get all that out of there, but I managed to get all that out and got it cleaned out. And then I had to cut into that transom. And what I ended up doing is cutting the whole inside of the transom out and digging out all the rotten wood that was in there. And then I made a new piece of fiberglass from the piece I cut out as my pattern. I glassed that in, and then I did a pour transom, and it came out really nice, super rock solid. I had done a ton of research into the pour transoms, and everyone who had done one in the last decade was just raving about how solid their transom is and how, you know, nothing moves. And so that was good enough for me. And I went ahead and did that, and I was super happy that I did it. So then it was time to go ahead and cut the rest of the deck out. I debated whether to cut the rest of the deck off, but in the end I decided I didn't like the way it was, and I could gain an extra foot of width in the seating if I cut out, you know, the rest of it that was there. So I left maybe about a 6-inch wide, 7-inch wide strip of the original deck completely all the way around the perimeter, and then from then I just cut the rest of it out completely and then just gutted it. And I got it down until it was just a tub. It was just nothing but a tub. And took the gas tank out. That was a leaky, corroded mess. Threw that away. And then just started from scratch. And so the first thing that we did is we started building the V-berth area. And that part was going to be both somewhat of a V-berth, that no one was going to sleep down there, but it was going to be a storage place. But most importantly, it was going to be a toilet. And my wife was adamant that we have a good marine toilet. And I was adamant that if we were going to put a toilet up there, it was going to have to be usable. And I don't know how you make a usable toilet in a closed bow 20-foot boat. So I started really just going to boat shows and looking at different things and trying to come up with ideas. And then one day it hit me, if you made a clamshell bow and the bow opened up, if you had like sombrella on the sides, you could walk down in there and potentially have a stand-up head. And I was like, I've never seen that done before. Well, let's see if we can engineer it. Then we started building the deck over the bow area, and it had to be a compound curve. It had to curve both this, horizontally and longitudinally. And so we started laminating up beam pieces from multiple pieces of wood. We made a curve and epoxied it all together, and then we cut those pieces and glassed them in, and that became the structure underneath. And so then once we had that done, so we started designing the new bow area. And from my days in the boat renovation business, I knew that probably the best way to do that was just to go ahead and finish that out. Put the hull liner in there and finish it out while there's no top deck on it, because it's really a pain to get in there and work underneath a low ceiling. So I did that, which seemed, everyone who looked at it at the time was like, seems kind of weird that it would have a finished bow area and no deck on it. Like that's from experience, let me tell you. So then, once we had that done, we basically just started building the bulkheads and doing the deck top. And then we moved and started doing the seating configuration in the back. I put a brand new gas tank in it. Then built a new floor, all new. The stringers themselves, I decided not to replace them. They were pretty darn solid, but the main thing about them was that boat was such a deep V, and those stringers were so tall. And now, being that it was now an outboard and there was no motor connected to them, all they really had to do was add structure to the bottom. And when I looked at the geometry of that deep V and those deep stringers, and the deep stringers, they had really, really thick fiberglass on the sides of them. And I just concluded there's just no way that this hull is going to buckle or bend or do anything. I mean, it's basically two big triangles in cross section, and so I decided I'll save my effort and not do the stringers, and it's worked out great. That I've had the boat in the water now for 2.5 years, and it's rock solid. So I think that was an okay decision. So I put the new floor in and started doing the new seating configuration. And this boat was going to have wraparound seating. Now, originally from the factory, this boat came with 2 back-to-back seats. One on the driver's side, one on the port side. And that was what they did on a lot of boats in the 70s and even in the 80s. But I've never really liked that back-to-back thing. I think the manufacturers did it because it was easy. A few manufacturers were making those back-to-back seats, and they could buy them and bolt them down and send the boat to the dealer. I wanted wraparound seating, and I wanted it to come all the way down the port side, across the back, and back up the starboard side all the way to the back of the captain's chair. So I started designing that and getting it the way I wanted, and I found a seating manufacturer to build me a custom captain's chair, and I sent them the fabric that I was going to use for the back, and told them I wanted to do a diamond stitch in the middle of the back section. So they did that and sent it back to me, and then I did the identical diamond stitch in the backrest of all of the seats that went around the perimeter. And so after I built the structure underneath, we did the flooring, and then we wrapped all of it, and we were going to do this boat in silvers. So everything was going to be silver, and the flooring had silver tones in it, and a different trim material under the seats that had kind of a pebble texture that was a darker color. And then we're going to do white upholstery and chrome accents. So it was basically going to be all these silvers and chromes. And then I found this material that was houndstooth. It had a houndstooth pattern to it, and it was in the same silvery gray color scheme. And it was made to use for bimini tops. And I thought, wow, what a great material to use for the decking. And it's obviously made to be waterproof. And so I did some testing, and I tried gluing it down to some of the wood that I was using for my decking structure, and it stuck really well, and everything seemed to hold up. And so I took that and the pebble texture that I used on the perimeter of the deck, and I took them, and while we were doing the project, I took samples of them and I laid them in my driveway for 6 months while all the structure of the boat was getting done. And so those samples laid in my driveway in the Florida sun for 6 months, and then I took them in and compared them with the part that was right next to them that I cut off, and I couldn't tell a difference on either one. I couldn't tell which half had been in the sun for 6 months and which half hadn't. So I concluded that it was going to be plenty good for durability and for sun fastness. So we went ahead and we did the houndstooth on the deck, and I tell you what, it transformed that boat. It just, all of a sudden, that thing just popped of a new essence of class. That houndstooth just kind of gave it an old world charm and kind of a timeless class. And I just thought, how cool, it really was different. It was really neat. So then it was all starting to really come together, but it needed a windshield. And that's where I was stuck, because I wanted to have the front of that bow, the middle of that bow, open up. And I thought, how am I going to do a windshield and have the middle part open up? And I thought, well, maybe you can use a 3-piece windshield where the front center section opens on a hinge, like a walkthrough. And I started looking, and I was looking, and I just couldn't find anything. I just couldn't find anything that was the right shape, couldn't find anything that was right size. I did buy one off of Craigslist that was like a used one from some other boat that I was hopeful might work, but once I got it on there, it really didn't look right. And I wanted the windshield to pop. I'm a windshield guy on boats. I really believe windshields make a boat. So I ended up designing my own windshield out of cardboard and concluded that it would have to be made out of smoke acrylic. And so after I got my pattern done, my cardboard pattern, I found a local guy. Florida's kind of big for that kind of stuff, so I was able to find a guy who made custom acrylic windshields. And so I took him my pattern, and he was super impressed with the pattern. He's like, I've never had anybody bring me such a good pattern, because I had a base for it, and the cardboard sat in there and showed it all at the right rake and where the holes were going to go and the whole deal. So he didn't have to do any design work. He just had to copy what I'd done in cardboard. And sure enough, a couple weeks later, he called me up and said, yep, come get your windshields. And I tell you what, I put them on the boat, and it was a transformation. That thing just popped to life and really started to look really good. So the outboard, we had ordered an outboard during COVID. And during COVID, you couldn't just buy an outboard. You had to order one, get on a waiting list, and we waited for that thing for, I think, a year, maybe a little over a year and a half maybe even. But we had originally ordered this motor for a different boat. And during that time, we sold the other boat that it was supposed to go on. So I was like, well, I'm not canceling this outboard. So we're just gonna have to find another boat to put it on, because we've been waiting all this time. So we put it was a 140 Suzuki. Now, arguably underpowered for that boat. I would have liked to put at least a 200 on it, but we were planning to use it for mostly canal cruising and a little bit of island hopping. So I was like, let's give it a whirl. If it doesn't work, we'll repower it with something bigger later, but I'm sure the 140 will push it okay. And so, we bought the motor. Normally only dealers rig those things, but we had a dealer friend that we knew that we'd worked with for years, and he made a deal with me and sold me the outboard and let me rig it myself, which was great. And so my wife and I, we ended up going and buying a cherry picker, a motor lift for a car, and we pulled that motor up out of its crate that it came in. It came, in the original crate, and we mounted it on there, and rigged it. And it was a little bit of a challenge, because we ordered a manual shift motor versus an electric shift. I'm a really big believer in manual stuff. I just like mechanical things, and I like it when, if something doesn't work, you can look at it and see why it's not working. You know, maybe it needs a cable, or maybe the lever broke or whatever. But, you know, when it's electronic and it doesn't work, you know, you're pulling your hair out. So it was a little bit of a challenge to rig it because, you know, those cables had to do a lot of twists and turns, and, you know, when that motor gets tilted up, you know, things have to, you know, give and turn and do what they have to do. Steering too, we did the same thing. I did a manual cable steering for the same reasons. You know, less expensive, you know, a lot less expensive, and a lot simpler. And so, you know, same thing, you know, you had to be real careful about routing the steering cable and making sure you don't have any kinks in anything to make everything work smooth. So I spent a little extra time on that, but I think it was worth it. And it's been rock solid. You know, it shifts perfectly, it steers perfectly, and really, you know, steers easier than most hydraulic steering boats that I've tried. So I'm really happy with the cable steering. So anyway, we got that on there, and then it was time to wrap the boat. And my wife and I decided to wrap it. We've now done a few, and so we started and we went down the starboard side. Actually, no, I think we started on the port side, and wrapped it, you know, stern to bow, and then, you know, pulled the we use the they call it cut tape, and because what you don't want to really do after you get done wrapping it is, you know, be using an X-Acto knife and trying to cut the film and make a nice cut and not cut into your gel coat and all that. So you want to use the cut tape, and so that's always kind of a nice reveal when you go to use the cut tape. And then when you get your wrap all done on one side, then you go back and pull your cut tape and then peel that piece off, and it's like ta-da! It's a really cool moment in the wrap process. So, but yeah, so we got it wrapped, and we wrapped the dash and you know, the stern platform, the swim platform, and kind of just did all the trim and got it all the way we wanted it. And then I wanted the original Formula decals, and so I called Formula and wanted to order them. And I thought there must be different sizes because this is a 20-foot boat, and they said, no, we've only ever made one size. And so I thought that can't be. So I went out and started looking for every Formula I could find, and I was measuring the 3D decals on it, and sure enough, they're all the same. So I went to order them, and the lady's like, yep, they're $350. I'm like, holy Moses. So, but what choice did I have, right? So I went ahead and ordered them, and when they came, they were just, you know, chromed plastic 3-dimensional letters, just all in a bag, you know, with the Thunderbird emblem. And I thought, geez, it would have been nice to have some sort of template or something. But anyway, so I started laying it out and measuring that out, and I got them stuck on there and decided how I wanted to do it. It looks really good, and I guess was worth the $350. Although you have to ask yourself while you're doing it, like, is this crazy or or what? But anyway, got the new decals on, and the boat was really starting to take shape at that point. So then it was time to go ahead and go down and do this clamshell bow. And so I had made the structure. The bow was on a hinge, the middle section. And so what I did was I got a couple of big gas shocks, you know, like they use for the lift gate or the lift back in a hatchback car. And I put one on each side, and I fit that in there. And then I wanted to mount my Simrad in the middle of the front of it. So that was a little bit of a challenge to figure out how to route the cabling so that the thing could pivot up and come back down and still work right and not stress the cables and all that stuff. But I figured out a way to do it. And then I put some black Sunbrella fabric all over the sides of it. And so when the thing opens, you're completely covered on the sides. And then there's a Sunbrella door, basically, well, I call it a door, but it's a flap that comes down in the front, and it has, you know, Velcro on it, and so that sticks to the sides and to the bottom. So I can walk into that stand-up head, and I can use the toilet without, I'm not a very tall guy, I'm only about 5'8", but I can walk in there and go to the bathroom without even ducking. And my wife and for the women, it's just great because they can go in there and they have complete privacy and lots of room, lots of elbow room and headroom. And so that's the thing that really freaks people out when they see, and the thing they never expect to see in a 20-foot boat is a full-size walk-in stand-up head. And I think for a boat that size, it's an absolute game changer. And we have never had a person who's a real boater and get on that boat and not just be like, why doesn't everyone do this? I mean, it's just so usable, and it's so much better than what they're doing in most of the boats. As we were doing the interior, one of the big questions is, where are we going to put the cup holders? And I've been accused in the past by my wife of not putting enough cup holders in these boats. So I was like, well, you know, I could put them maybe in the backrest. You know, they do that on some of the wake boats where they'll put a recess behind the backrest, so they'll put them in there. But we really didn't have the space there. We really didn't have the height to do it. So we were kind of hemming and hawing. And then my wife had this really great idea. She's like, you know, nobody likes to sit on the cracks between the two upholstery pieces. Why don't we put the drink holders right there in the crack? And I thought about it. I'm like, well, it's kind of odd, but the more I think about it, I kind of like that idea. And so I started kind of taping it off on the base, and it seemed like that would work, and we'd still have tons of seating, and so that's exactly what we did. And we basically Frenched in the cup holders right between the seats, at each gap between the seats. And it absolutely works perfectly. And people really like it, that your drink is right there, right next to you, right where you want it. And it really doesn't interfere with the seating at all. And I just think it was just a great solution. And I'm gonna do it probably on every boat I build from now on, because I think it's just a really good way to do it. It's really elegant, and now after using the boat for a couple of years, I love the way that it works, and the passengers seem to think it's a great idea too. I haven't had a single person say, geez, you know, this is in the way or whatever. So I think that was a really good solution. Well, since we were going to use the boat for mostly canal cruising, and we were kind of new to this whole canal thing, I thought, you know, it might be nice to have a stern thruster in there. So if I get to the end of one of these canals, and some of them are kind of narrow, you know, I don't have to sit there and go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, you know, like Austin Powers, you know, in the movie. I can just hit the stern thruster and spin that thing around. And so when I started looking at the transom situation, I thought, well, you know, I've done this before. I've made stern thrusters from trolling motors before, and it works really, really well. But the challenge for this one is that it has an outboard bracket. And so what I decided to do was cut the skeg off of a saltwater trolling motor, and then cut a hole in basically the side, kind of the bottom side of the outboard bracket. And I figured I only need this thing to spin one way. You know, I don't need to spin both ways. It's an outboard, so it'll be fairly maneuverable, but it would be nice if I could just, you know, if I get myself into a tight spot, to just spin the back around. So I decided to make it spin counterclockwise. So basically it's pushing, you know, from port towards starboard. And so I just rigged that motor to run full speed forward, you know, pushing, you know, basically port to starboard wise, to spin that boat around. And then I put a toggle switch under the dash to run it. It absolutely works fantastic. It's out of the water when the boat's up on plane, and when it's sitting down in the water, I would say the prop is 3/4 to 7/8 underwater. It's not quite submerged, but it's good enough to get a good thrust to spin that boat around. And it's a light boat, so it doesn't take too much. But yeah, so I think that was a really unique add to the boat. And I tell you, once in a while, I'll be in a situation where I want to use it, and it kind of makes a little noise because the prop isn't underwater completely, so you can kind of hear it a little bit. And man, it turns heads. People are like looking at me, going, "What?" So yeah, so it's kind of a fun thing. Well, people love the boat, and when I take it to a restaurant, and especially if I have to wait for a place to dock, and I have to sit out there for a little bit, when I finally get into a dock space, for sure 2, 3, 4 people will come down, from the restaurant and start asking questions, because people know formulas, especially down in South Florida, but they've never seen one like this. And they're just like, what? Because it looks new. I mean, it looks like a brand new boat with that new windshield and the way the deck is. It looks like I just got it off the show floor, but at the same time, Formula doesn't make anything like that. And so it's really fun, to have all these questions, and people are like, well, is this new? What is it? And when I tell them it's a 77, they're like, what? So it's really fun, but it's a very pretty boat and rides amazingly. That deep V hull is incredible. I'm so glad. Now, I've ridden in so many boats now since I've been in Florida that are made by the major brands. I won't name them, but they all ride like crap compared to that thing. I mean, honestly, that thing cuts through the deepest chop, and it is amazing. For a 20-foot boat, that thing is so solid. We drove it 35 miles up to Boca, and we hit some pretty big swells on the way, and I didn't even have to back off. I mean, it just cuts right through, Now, granted, I was only going maybe 25, but still, it cut through like a hot knife through butter. So I'm very impressed with that hull. It's really, really a good hull, and I'm kind of surprised that they kind of quit making those really deep V hulls like that. And all I can think is that maybe they wanted to go wider to get more seating in the boats. But I'll tell you what, it's hard to beat those deep Vs, those old deep Vs.